Well, good evening, Portage Bible Church. Pastor Ben here. It's Monday, July 26th. This video is about one day early, as I have some other things going on tomorrow on Tuesday. So as you watch this video, this is our post-sermon video regarding the passage that was preached yesterday on James chapter 1, verses 13 through 15. And as we do each week, this is just a time to reflect and kind of be reminded by some of the things that were said, and kind of further solidify in our minds the application of what we're talking about. In James chapter 1, verses 13 through 15, as was preached yesterday, we read these words: "Let no one say when he is tempted, I am being tempted by God. For God cannot be tempted with evil, and he himself tempts no one. But each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Then desire, when it has conceived, gives sin, and sin, when it's fully grown, brings forth death." It's a bit of a hard passage. It's hard because it hits us square in the face with so much truth. We know that we are born in sin. As believers, we have been taught that, whether for many years or just a few weeks. We know this is true. But then often what happens is that we try to justify and belittle our sin and pretend it's not that big of a deal when we start doing the comparison game of the world around us or fellow believers. But that's not right. We are confronted with the reality that each and every one of us individually is born in sin, and we stand guilty before a holy God. But in the midst of this hard truth, there's some very wonderful things. And most importantly, from verse 13, is the fact that we serve a holy God who has no part of sin. It can't touch him. He has no experience with it. It goes against his very nature, his very essence. And to say that God has a part in sin, or to say that God tempts us when difficulties in life come, is to question God's goodness, is to, in a sense, accuse him of things that are not true regarding his character and his nature. This is both heavy and rewarding and a blessing, freeing in a sense, that we realize that no matter how great of a sinner we are, we serve a wonderful, merciful, loving God who has made a way for us to be free from our sin through his Son, Jesus Christ. And as the scripture says, without the shedding of blood, there is no remission of sins. But the good news is Christ did shed his blood. He shed it for us so that we could have life in his name. And as a result, we are no longer held captive as slaves to sin, but rather have been set free. But now, according to James's letter, what happens? Throughout the rest of our lives as believers, we're going to have this daily battle to put to death the deeds of the flesh, to deny ourselves and follow Christ, or to give in, to let sin hold us captive, to take the bait and the lure, and to choose ourselves. It's a daily battle, and sometimes it's very weary. And yet God has made a way. The rewarding news, as is mentioned in James chapter 4, verse 7, that we are to submit ourselves therefore to God, to resist the devil, and he will flee from us. That's a promise. That's a guarantee. God says, come to me, submit to me. And the devil has no ground of authority over us in any capacity. I hope these truths sink deep into our minds, that we think on them, that we take them seriously, and that we ponder the truth and the power of this portion of Scripture, as we would any other. We often are guilty of favoring the easier portions of Scripture, the ones that make us feel good, and the ones that confront us with the reality of who we are, we tend to avoid. But this is something we should not avoid, but take serious time to think on it. One of the questions I asked in my message by way of reflection was this: what lies of the enemy or the devil are we believing? Is he causing us to question God's goodness? Is he causing us to question that God is in control? Because when trials and difficulties in life come, that's very easy to do. And when we start to question those things and meditate on those things, then we begin to wonder if they're true. And then all of a sudden, temptation for an easier life doesn't seem so bad compared to the difficulties we're facing. So what questions is the evil one causing you to be tempted with? To doubt God's goodness? To stop trusting him? To wonder if whenever this trial ends, is it really worth it? Take those things to the Lord in prayer. And as James says, submit to him and resist the evil one. It's a heavy topic for this week, but I hope it gives us much to think on. Spend time in the scripture, spend time in prayer. Take some time to examine yourself and say, Lord, show me what lies of the evil one am I believing, and help me to trust that you are indeed good all the time. Have a blessed week. Look forward to Thursday when we get ready to talk about next Sunday's message. Have a blessed night.